Alright, so I have this experience that I need to share with all of you out there. Now, this is going to be, it might seem a little bit frightening to some people who watch this, but I have to share it with you regardless. I had this experience about, I think it happened, it was yesterday, and it had to have been, I know I always say I have these real powerful experiences, but this one was as deep as I've ever had it. I don't even know where to begin, but I've made previous videos where I went into how I was experiencing different time, equivalents of time in the other realms. And the longest I've been able to pull out was, the first time I ever experienced was a few years ago, where I don't want to say trapped in the dreaming, I don't want to scare anyone, but I couldn't return back through the normal means that I usually use to return. And that time I was in a room, and I actually thought I died. I made other videos about this, but it's worth mentioning again. I thought I was dead at that time, and I couldn't come back to my body no matter what I tried. And it felt at that time, it felt like the equivalent of 3 hours being in this reality that I was in. And it was just a room. I couldn't get out of the room. I was basically locked into this room, and I couldn't get out of it. And I started to consider the possibility of my own death. And yeah, I said, well, after many unsuccessful attempts to return, I sat down. I remember it as if it was yesterday, and most likely is, because it's probably happening right now still, other probable versions of this story. But yeah, I considered the possibility of my own demise. And once I accepted it, from that point I was able to come up out of this reality and return to my body. It was a very powerful experience at that time, because anyone could probably imagine you going to bed, crossing over, and the usually safety nets that we have of returning back to the body, closing your eyes. Some people like to kill themselves, jumping in front of a car, jumping out a window, any of these things to bring you back. What if none of those things work? The only rational thing, a logical thing to consider is the fact that you've already physically have died in a physical reality. So that was that. That was a few years ago. As I have grown in my powers and my abilities, the time limits have gotten longer. And this has been happening in the last, just say, I don't know, few years. Quite recently, the longest I've been able to pull out has been a day, or the equivalent to a day, where I crossed over into a reality. And I was in this reality for such a long time, it was the equivalent of a day. It was in a probable version of where I work at in Japan, and I actually was with a person having conversation, took a bus, we went looking for a restaurant, we found a restaurant, we ate food. I sat down and talked to a man, we looked through photo books, we watched a video about art, we talked about art. We'd done all of this, and it was the equivalent to being one day here in physical reality. And then I took a bus back to where we had to get the train from and all this stuff. And it all took place. And when I returned to my body, only the span of, could have been a few hours or something that had passed, but basically I had a whole full day in this time, in this other reality. But the experience that I'm about to drop on y'all is This is some heavy shit, man. And this is, I know it seems like, I don't know what it seems. I don't know what other people think, but this thing was heavy. Let me just to get it out here. I know y'all saying what happened. I went to bed, and I went to bed unusually early, which is like around 11 o'clock or something. And I'm not so much of a heavy sleeper. I mean, I could go to bed very quickly and cross over, but I don't have any sleep problems as far as getting my body to rest in a meditation state. But this night, it was about 11, and I went to bed very quickly. And I was eager to cross back over to inner reality. And what happened was, I crossed over into inner reality, and I ended up in a reality that lasted the approximation of 1 year. That's exactly what happened, man. You know, when you go into these other realms, every time it changes you. It changes you every time you come back. And depending on the amount of excitement or the amount of experience that you take on, it does affect your personality here in physical reality. I don't know really how to explain what happened, but I mean, that would be, I don't want to scare anybody, but that would be scary for someone where you go to bed and you end up in another place for 1 year. Now, I know people can say, how did you know it was 1 year's time? I don't know exactly how to break it down and explain, because some things are untranslatable, especially when you're talking about these other states of consciousness. They don't fit within the vocabulary or the semantics of language. But I was in this place. It was basically 2 realities, or 3, but the experience that I took on, it was so long, man, and it was the equivalent, it felt like a year, but it was an endless present moment that just never ended. And I had to battle many times to maintain not falling into what was happening and not believing that anything could hurt me. The first reality was I was in this kind of Iceland, this snow-covered, below zero frigid temperature terrain, man. And it was me and a group of people, and we were all dressed up as if, we are in the mountains and shit, man, with hiking gear and everything. And it was freezing cold, and I remember being here, and I was like, man, this is crazy, man. I hate cold weather. I'm not a cold weather person. I'm a summer guy, man. And so me being in this place was not fun. And we were basically trying to find our way to wherever we were trying to get to out of this situation, but it just didn't end. It kept going and going and going. And we had to cross through some water. I remember going into the water feeling it was freezing cold, but it wasn't cold to the point where I would die, because I know I couldn't die, and I was aware of that, but the cold was as real as you stepping into a freezing lake. So just imagine you falling into some freezing water in the dead of winter, but you feel the cold, but you just simply won't die. And this is where I ended up at. And I was with this team of people, man. We were here in this wilderness for a long time. And I just want to tell y'all this, man. Time moves very differently in these other realms. Move completely different. This experience, I've been thinking about, I had to really meditate on this, about taking into just conscious thought of what I experienced, because it's like, it's just unbelievable. You go to bed, it's like, I've gotten to this level which is so, I don't want to say advanced, but it's so beyond what most people experience when they're trying to invest. I mean, a lot of people are trapped on, not trapped, but into lucid dreaming, becoming conscious, but it gets so much deeper than that. And no one should be afraid. You're not going to experience any of this if you're not ready for it. So it's not like I was traumatized or anything, because this is what I'm into and these are things that I look forward to. But when you get hit with it unexpectedly, it's like close your eyes and then you end up in another place for a year. It's just unreal, man. And yeah, that was the reality. So we were trying to find our way out of this reality, crossing mountains. I mean, this was a reality that just went on endlessly wherever we were at. And time was passing, the equivalent of time, but like I said, time just moves very differently. But wherever this place was, the equivalent of a year's time of experience was going through me, and I was experiencing it very slowly. And eventually I ended up out of this reality in my grandmother's kitchen, in my grandmother's house, in her apartment. And I was in my grandma's apartment. I thought, all right, cool. I made it out of that reality. Hell, that was an unbelievable amount of time. And while this was going on, I mean, I was maintaining, because I wanted to see how long I could stretch this. And like I said, you have to really experience it to know what I'm talking about. But time is just, it's not what we think it is. Time, when you go in these other states of consciousness, you can experience an infinite amount of knowledge and experience within a very short time frame. So, yeah. Anyway, so I had this experience. Sorry, I'm keeping track of time. And end up at my grandmother's house. And from there, I thought, all right, safety zone. This is going to be one of my little safety zones. And that didn't last for too long, because next thing you know, I ended up in another pretty unlucky place. I was in the Middle East, which it was a Middle Eastern country. I don't know, it could have been Pakistan or Afghanistan. It was one of these places similar to that. And I was a prisoner in this place, man. So it's like, I really wish I could give you guys this magical experience. Like, yeah, man, I was gone for a year and I was chilling on the other side, training and doing all this stuff. But I went to some unhappy places, man. And I was in this prison, which they were holding people. And it was just unreal, man. I mean, they were holding me as a hostage. I remember at one point, this guy put a gun to my head. And he threatened to blow my brains out. And I remember at that time, I don't know how to explain it, but like when I'm in these other realms, I'm maintaining my level of kindness. Really, I don't want to say tough. I don't want you to think it's difficult, but it is a talent that you have to build to maintain your level of consciousness and not fall into that unconscious state where you don't know what's happening and you're just playing around this experience. But when he put this gun to my head, I wanted him to pull the trigger. Not because I had a death wish, but I knew that it wouldn't have killed me, and I just wanted to see the feeling of it. So, but I didn't provoke him, and I just played along with it. And this was another extremely long reality that I was in, man. That went on, it felt endlessly. It just kept going on, and I experienced all these things as a prisoner, being in this place. The whatever that goes along with being a prisoner. And yeah, they were basically trying to get some information out of me, and I wouldn't talk. Whatever this information was, I just wouldn't talk. I wouldn't give them what they wanted, so they kept on antagonizing me and shit, but this reality went on and on and on. So after experiencing that full reality, when I finally came back to my physical body, I was, the person's house that I spent the night in, they were like, when I came back to the body, I felt a little shaky, like my hands were a little bit shaky. When I first came back, I opened my eyes, I wasn't completely aware of my surroundings. I was a little confused. So I opened my eyes and I was like, where the fuck am I? And I completely did not recognize the room that I was in. And it took maybe about, I don't know, it could have been 30 seconds to a minute for me to fully get my faculties back in order and realize, okay, I'm back. Because I wasn't sure if I had crossed over into another scenario or if I had actually came back. And they call these false awakenings or something like that. So I wasn't sure. So I started doing little tests to really focus to see if I was really back or I crossed into another reality. And like I said, my hands were a little bit shaky. I guess from this large experience I just had. I told the person that I was with, I said, you won't believe what just happened. And I broke it down what happened to me. And they were like, this is how it's good. This is something we don't always get, but if you're lucky enough to get feedback from somebody who's still in physical reality, this person was like, yeah, last night was really strange. I said, what do you mean? They were like, you were in such a deep sleep and you were snoring really hard, like this unbelievable snoring sound. Now, I'm not a snorer. And even if I do start to snore, I usually wake up from my own snoring and become aware of it. But they were like, you were in such a deep sleep, you didn't even move, you didn't even wake up. And this person said they were doing loud noises, they were moving around, they were doing all these things, and I just simply could not wake up. So this shows, from my point of view, where I was, how deep I was into these realities. I mean, I must have went way beyond the barriers of what I usually do. And as I said, this was something new for me as far as my training goes. And yeah, man, it's like when I came back, I remember I was walking, riding my bike back here in Navis Grounds. I was riding my bike going to this other place, and when you stay in that long, it's like the longer you stay in, every time you come back, the more, I don't want to say unreal everything seems, but kind of like that, man. You really see that this is all just an illusion. It's very transient. Nothing is real. Nothing is real. And, man, you know, we take life so seriously. We take all these things so seriously, but that we go through every day, and it's like, these other realms are no joke, man. All I gotta say is this. Whoever comes across my videos, whoever ends up watching this video, you really need to start getting yourself prepared for what's going to come. This was a lesson for me, and the lesson was showing how time moves differently, the concept of time, how we can experience years in the matter of hours of physical reality time. And as all this was happening, it's not like I was being terrified or anything. I was completely aware that these were all my manifestations. Even the asshole with the gun threatening to blow my brains out. I was completely aware that this was all my manifestations. And I chose to play out these realities because I was really interested. I mean, I could have done a lot of things. I could have simply just killed all of them. You know, I could have simply just used my abilities to bring me up out of this. But it wasn't about that. This was about, when you want to start talking about hardcore experimentation with your own consciousness, this is where it is, folks. This is what it is. Seeing how long you are willing to put yourself into these realities and how deep you can go and how powerful you are to maintain these realities, regardless of how crazy it gets, regardless of how terrifying or gruesome they may be, and seeing how well you handle yourself in these other realms. Because I said it in my other videos, this physical reality that we're in, this is our safety net. This is the kind of safe zone that we bounce back to regroup, analyze our thoughts. But once you leave here, you're not going to have that safety zone anymore, man. I don't want to scare anybody, but you will be on your own, and it will be your own power at your disposal. And if you don't learn how to use it, you're going to be in for some unhappy trails, my friends. Trails that you make yourself. You're going to be creating this shit, but if you don't know how to use your abilities, you could end up in some pretty unhappy situations that you could avoid if you just take the time now to focus on this stuff. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you, man. How do I feel physically? As far as my physical body goes, I feel great. But it's just different, man. Something's different. It's untranslatable. It's beyond words. Once you start getting deep with it like this, you transcend from the material to the ethereal, from the physical to the metaphysical. This is what it's all about. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, man. I'm not feeling terrible. I'm not feeling scared or anything. I don't want you to think, wow, this guy's looking down. It's just that it has such an impact on me that this just changes everything. This changes the whole game. And I'm aware that this was just one of many things to come. Many things that are going to come my way. This was just one of them. A sample, a taste of the infinite. A taste of immortality. And this is what we all have. We're all immortal, man. And I know that's hard to understand, to grasp that concept, but we are all immortal. And nobody seems to know about it. I just told a friend the other day, 2 of the biggest jokes in this physical reality are, 1, entities, which is all of us, believing that we are human. And the second biggest joke is the so-called search for immortality. It's a joke because we already have it. There's nothing to search for. We're already immortal, man. So yeah, get serious with your work, man, because I can't go into the full explicit details of what happened in that 1 year's experience time because I would never finish it, but just letting y'all know that this is something that you could come across depending on your level of advancement, wherever you are at your point in your journey. But yeah, man, once I came back, see, this is the interesting thing. I didn't experience these concepts. Like, I came back with all these new concepts, man. And it's like, remember what I said before in other videos, when you cross into these other realms, sometimes things are not as they appear to be. So even though I was experiencing this Iceland of infinite space and this prison death camp in the Middle East, there were other things going on that at the time I wasn't aware of, but they were still taking place. So I had other trainings going on. We're all multidimensional, man. So I had many other realities popping off at that same time. So when I came back, my head was filled with all these concepts. And I might just make another video to tell y'all about them. Some of them anyway. And yeah, for now, I just wanted to make this little short video to let y'all know about these other states of consciousness, man, that you could go to bed one night and end up gone for a year. But on this side, only a few hours would have passed, but you would take in a year's worth of knowledge and experience. But yeah, that's it for right now, man. But maybe I'll get back at y'all later. All I have to say is this was truly a moment to meditate on. Alright, peace, love, and harmony. I might get back at y'all with another video. Alright, later.